Hogstye.
Hey everybody, welcome to a dynamic duo. Let me restart that, folks. Hey everybody, and welcome to the dynamic duo episode of the Hogstye. It's just Steve and I today. Jamal unfortunately had a passing in his close family. We don't want to give any details because that's really his business. But our thoughts and prayers and stuff go out to him.
Absolutely.
Because it's a tough thing to have to go through for him. And I hope he's, just safe and spends his time with his family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But Steve, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm just doing peachy, man.
Peachy
and or keen. Yeah,
Yeah.
The world is locked down over an irrational fear of an overblown virus thing that's going on is
Sure.
really an introvert's dream.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. I'll be honest, like, for you and me both, it's probably like,
It doesn't really change my life.
It
It doesn't really change my life all that much.
Right. I don't go and get as much food from restaurants as I normally do. And I've lost about 10 pounds because of it. So, there's that.
Yeah, I mean, we've been eating more at home, as well.
Which, for you, is probably hell, because I know you hate cooking.
Well, but fortunately, I have a kid who doesn't hate cooking. So he and I have been trying to do
your kids are now old enough they can do that.
Well, he and I have been trying to do it together, actually.
Oh, that's
and he's
good.
teaching me.
Your older one or your younger one?
The younger one. Yeah, the older one,
cool.
no.
That's a cool little thing there, Steve.
Basically, I just stand back and take direction.
Right. He tells you to... I'm assuming you can at least cut a few things with a knife.
Well, no, he doesn't trust me to do that. It's like, the rolls need to be put in the oven, and you watch that.
Okay.
Here, come stir this, and, that kind
Steve,
of thing.
a 40-something-year-old man not trusted with sharp objects.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, what can you say? He also likes to do it, though.
That's cool.
Yeah, or I'll talk to him about it the night before and say, okay, what do you want? And I'll lay the meat out and stuff like that. Because then I have to call and ask somebody about what to get because I don't really know, even what meat to get.
I would suggest looking into some of those. If he's still trying to learn, just looking into one of those like pre-order, like Blue Apron type things, because they just give you the recipes. It's very straightforward. It's a good way to learn how to do some of this stuff.
I understand that, but the problem is they like some very specific things and like season the exact specific way that they grew up with, and I don't know how to do it, and so he has to ask and how to do it, and again I just sort of follow direction.
Sure,
and I can clean
that's
up.
Cool.
I clean up. That's my role.
You're clean. That I can see you being very good at.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, well. In these weird times, it's fun that people are finding new things to do, and it sounds like one of your kids is at least doing that.
Yeah,
so that's
absolutely.
Great.
I made tacos by myself. Can you imagine? Picture this, me. So I bought one of those little. I didn't know they had these. I bought this like little taco kit thing.
Sure.
It was. I can't remember.
By Old El Paso. I know exactly what it is.
I read the directions, and I actually did it completely by myself because the kid was at his friend's house, and so and so I did it myself.
And for those who don't know, Steve has a minor taco background in that he worked at a Taco Bell when he was like 13.
It's my proudest achievement. And I was not 13. That would be illegal. I was 16.
It was long enough ago that I didn't think they had child labor laws.
I'm not that old, first of all.
I know. I've been doing painting, and you've probably maybe seen one or two paintings in the background, Steve, that I've been working on. But anyway, let's get into the actual show because we've done our little 4 minutes of banter.
We can't babble, for another 10.
We can, but we could talk about politics or whatever.
Let's not do that.
No, we won't do that.
I scold the morons in our comments section on a daily basis before I quit because I got tired of all of them because I think they're idiots about it. So let's not do it on the show.
Sure.
Notice how I get that jab in there like almost every single time.
I know you love to jab them.
Because I just think
they won't
morons.
notice because half of them probably won't listen to the podcast because they're all dicks.
Basically, I think that unless I have talked to you personally offline, I think you're a complete moron. In terms of the people in the comments section, just understand that.
Right. As soon as you talk to them, like no one from Tampa, who's one of our writers now, who you and I have talked to a couple times on the phone, now you like him. Before that, you didn't like him.
kind of, I guess, but he wasn't one of the ones that I thought was completely stupid.
Yeah, I know.
The other ones are they're just dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the fact that we use them for clicks, and then we get like a penny every time they log in.
I don't like you. I will exploit you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't mind exploiting you. I just don't like you.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get into the show now. We've padded long enough because it's a light show. Our topic today, we're going to start with the position breakdown because we're doing cornerbacks. A lot of corners on the team because, you just need a lot for camp and everything. So I thought let's start with this at the top because who knows how long this will take. Okay. But let's start with the poll because you did a cornerback poll, and that'll lead us into our first player.
Yes. So we always do these weekly polls, and as I've said, sometimes weekly polls are tough to come up with. And, you can tell when we don't have a better idea, it always relates to the position group breakdown. And this is one of these weeks because it's a light news week. So here's the poll. It's not news to suggest that the Redskins corner group struggled last year and now is without both of their top starters from recent years. Who is the team's long-term number one corner? And the choices I gave you are Fabian Moreau, Kendall Fuller, another player on the roster, or he's not on the roster. Those are the choices. Mm-hmm. It was more popular than last week's poll, but still we're kind of in the slow time, and so it was a little bit light on votes. But that's okay. We got certainly more than enough. So, Alex.
We're also sometimes just, coming up with these in 10 seconds and putting them out there.
Yeah,
like
without any
last
forethought.
week's was me just coming up with one off the cuff, and we were like, all right.
And that was pretty much what I did this week. So,
yeah.
Okay, anyway, your thoughts.
Okay, so I have a couple thoughts on this topic itself, but let me just do this simple. I think the fans will go with, I guess, Kendall Fuller. That's just my guess. Personally, I don't think we have a true number one corner, and I don't see one on this roster right now. I think we're going to have to go out and find one eventually if that's a priority. And I say if that's a priority because I don't think that is a priority in the Ron Rivera defense. I think that what we do have, and we'll get into this in a bit, is I think we have a lot of guys who you can put in good roles. I think Kendall Fuller, we saw it before he left for Kansas City. He's a great slot corner. He's probably one of the best slot corners in the game. I think, or he was before he left. He kind of fell apart in Kansas City, but they also started using him on the outside, putting him at free safety. That's a whole other topic. I think you look at Fabian Moreau, failed as a slot guy, great on the outside. And I think he could be a good number two on the outside for a while. But that's the whole, what is a true number one going to be in this offense, or defense? Sorry, not offense. I don't see us as having a Champ Bailey, this guy's going to go into the number one wide receiver every week.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, actually. First of all, the fans did vote for Kendall Fuller, 52%. The second place was 38%. He's not on the roster. 8% of you believe in Fabian Moreau, which I find that to be a bit strange, but okay. And then a mere 2% of you said it's another play on the roster. I'm just telling you the 2% are Ronald Darby fans. That's the 2%.
I'm surprised there's 2% Ronald Darby. I think they might be Jimmy Morlan fans.
No, it's Ronald Darby fans. I'm telling you. That's who it is. It's Ronald Darby fans. And it's because there's a group of people out there who believe that Ronald Darby has talent and just think he's going to kind of, stay healthy and get it all together. And if you do that, then he's got a near elite athletic profile, not quite at the
he's got some flaws in his game, but he's pretty good.
Yeah, so that's a vote. Now, in terms of comments here, okay, let's go with Josh, who's at Grimm's Whims. He says, love that Fuller is coming back, but if Darby is able to stay healthy, he could really thrive in this defense. That's a big if, but he gets my vote. So there you go. There's one Darby vote. A woman, Kimberly. Kimberly M. Parkhurst, whose Twitter handle went off the page, so I can't read it. It's at Sweet Something. I love Kendall too. He has all the experience, including winning Super Bowl, but we need someone else to help him that's at least equal. He can't run all over the field. That's Kimberly. Here's a dude who looks like a woman, but is a man, so I won't read his name because I just made fun of you, and I want to keep you as a listener. Matter of fact, I guess I need to skip his comment since I just insulted him.
Yeah, let's not insult people who actually participate in the polls.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Trevor, who's
unless they're dicks. Like, we had one guy who was a dick that we called out once.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah. By the way, yeah, on Twitter, we don't ban or block anybody because it's too much fun. It's rewarding them, and it's what you want. And so, but you might get muted,
Right.
We've muted, our Twitter feed is remarkably politics free because I mute everything that's politics. If you re-forward something that's political, no matter what it is, it gets muted because we don't want to hear it. Trevor at WizFan says, I guess Kendall Fuller, but I feel he'd be best used in a different role than cornerback one. I endorse that comment. I think that's how I feel. Okay, that one's way too long. A bunch of really long comments. Here's one. Daryl, who is at Ocon119, says Fuller and Morlan are the only corners under contract after 2020, but neither are number one on a good team. Jury is still out on whether Morlan can really contribute or not. Also true. If I had voted, I would have voted for he's not on the roster because, like you, I don't think. I think we're going to get into this, but I think Kendall Fuller is a bit overrated, just period. But especially
I think it's more than a bit.
Yeah, right. And then Fabian Moreau, he's better on the outside, but he hasn't proved anything. So I don't think either one of those guys are. And Ronald Darby,
they're good role players, is what they are. They're not stars.
Yeah, there's not. I don't like, generally speaking, I don't like the term number one corner because I still don't really know what it means. And for me, I want an objective set of criteria. And I don't know what that is, but if you just sort of take it as, here's the guy who's going to cover the opposing team's Julio Jones every week, and that's what number one means, we don't have that. We definitely don't have that.
I understand what you mean when you say you don't like the term. To me, number one wide receiver is worse.
Oh, it is. Yeah, for sure.
But at least with number one corner, I think it universally means this is the guy you're going to put on the Julio Jones, the Deshaun Jackson. He's going to go against the biggest playmaking weapon on the other team.
Like Josh Norman was that for a while. I mean, he didn't do a great job at it, but he was a clear number one corner.
That's why we brought him here. Yeah. I think he failed at it pretty heavily.
He was good. I don't want to get into that, but I mean, he was good for a couple years, and then went all kind of downhill. But for a while, he was following the number one receiver every week.
Yes.
And that's what you want out of a number one corner. And is Fabian Moreau that guy? No, absolutely not.
No.
Is Kendall Fuller that guy? No, absolutely not.
So let's get into it because I think it is an interesting position group. First and foremost, we're probably talking about the biggest turnover group of any part of this defense or offense, any group, any part of the roster. I mean, your number one and number two guy are gone in Dunbar and Norman. We let's try not to focus on that too much because I think we've talked about our feelings on that to death at this point.
Right.
And let's focus on these new guys we have and the kind of the new look. We got Darby and Fuller in now.
Yeah.
And then we are going to have, I'm just going to list the names real quick. Moreau, probably Colvin, Danny Johnson, Greg Stroman, Jimmy Morlan, Jeremy Reeves. Is Marcus Smith new, or is he there's some depth guys, so I'm not sure when they came along. Marcus Smith and Simeon Thomas. I don't remember when we got them.
No, Smith was last year.
Okay, he was.
Thomas Simeon was last year. Simeon, let's just start with him because it's easy. He's suspended. He got busted at the end of the very end of last season for use of performance-enhancing drugs. So he's got a 4-game suspension coming. So he's done. Yeah, I mean, if he makes the active roster, he's going to be suspended for the first 4 games. He's suspended for the first 4 games anyway. Right. But if he makes the active roster, it's going to be because they really like him because they're not going to waste But he's not going to. I guess the point is he's not going to count against the 53 immediately. They might just outright cut him. They haven't yet, which tells you that they like him to some extent because. Why would you keep a dude who's suspended, who's a nothing burger?
He was a low on the depth chart guy to begin with.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't know that. So I'm going to say we talked about Thomas Simeon. You're probably not going to make the roster if you're going to be suspended for a third of the season.
This is why I keep my gigantic spreadsheet, Alex, because I have details like this.
Yes, yeah. That does come in handy. All right, well, let's start really, though, with I think the biggest topic is going to be Kendall Fuller. Because we gave him a pretty sizable contract to come back after, the trade for Smith. And I think it's fair to say he struggled pretty heavily in Kansas City. Yeah. They never quite figured out how to utilize him to how they liked him. He ended up playing safety for them in the Super Bowl, where he was okay. And in some ways, it makes sense to me that he was better at safety than being an outside corner, because I think, you're just roaming in the backfield, and he's got some speed and can close on guys. But it's an interesting signing, because if he's your highest paid guy, you'd think he's going to be your number one. But in my mind, Steve, he really shouldn't be the line him up on the outside number one corner. I still maintain he's great in the slot, so keep him there. Don't play guys where they will struggle. That's always been my mentality with a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I thought his contract was kind of odd, frankly. First of all, it was a 4-year, $40 million deal with $13.5 million guaranteed at signing, and then
that's big money.
Yeah, but $23.5 million guaranteed overall. Which means some of it comes guaranteed later down the line. So he's got a $4.125 million cap hit in 2020, and he's got $13.125 million in 2021. So huge money coming up. And so why are you paying that kind of money for a dude who's not going to be your follow Julio Jones number one corner? Because I agree, I don't think that's it at all, and I don't think he's great in the slot. I think he's good in the slot. I think if he was great in the slot, he'd still be a Kansas City Chief.
No, that's probably fair.
They let him go, and is he? I hope. I guess what I'm trying to say is I hope that Ron Rivera, despite the contract, will use him, make it to his highest and best use, and not try to shove him where he doesn't belong. And so, right. You got him now. The contract is what it is. So leave him in the slot. Just let him take over that role. That's right. Kind of the way I would see it.
Now, that's not to say if they're playing a traditional 4 defensive back look, like a more traditional 4-3 look, you can move him outside. From time to time, just because you might need him out there.
Of course.
But I think if you're playing nickel, and most teams are base nickel now, put him in the slot. Ron Rivera, his history is that he likes, he worries about the front seven more and the guys in the box more. So maybe the thinking is pay let's say good slot corner to be that key position, because you don't want that to be your weak link. And I went back and rewatched some of Kendall Fuller's video. The things he does well are things we've been struggling with here in DC under the last couple of years. He's really good against the run. I forgot how good he was against the run when he's kind of more in the box. And, when it comes to making interceptions, making plays, he's really better kind of sticking underneath a receiver than trying to be over top of them. So, to me, those are the reasons why I like seeing him more inside than playing outside.
I think that's fair. And the other thing about him is he's a bit short. Like Rob Henson mentioned this last week. Mm-hmm. He's listed at 5'10", which probably means, or 5'11", which probably means he's 5'10". Right. It's a bit short and small, not hugely short, and it's certainly not automatically disqualifying, but it's a bit on the smaller side for a big outside
all our
receiver.
guys are smaller now. Well, we don't have. The one guy we have over 6 foot, you just told me he's suspended. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's fair. Aaron Colvin is actually 6 feet tall too, but I don't think anybody thinks that a dude on a 1 year $1 million contract is going to be
anything.
Right. Fuller hasn't had that many interceptions. He only has 6 interceptions in his four seasons, 4 in 2017, 2 in 2018, none last year.
He had one in the Super Bowl last year.
The regular season. These are regular
We're
season.
talking regular. That's fine.
Yeah. I just think he's he won the poll because he's a name people know. He's from Virginia Tech, which means a lot of the Redskins fan base watched him in college.
Well, and don't forget, he's got, 4 brothers, or there's 4 Fuller brothers in the NFL.
Is it 4?
I think it's 4. And I think they're all local kids. They're obviously all local kids. So, they're a big name in Virginia.
Yeah, and that's kind of why, and I understand that, and I'm not trying to discourage anybody from rooting for whoever you want to, but just from an objective reality standpoint, I think the $40 million contract was overdone.
It surprised me. I thought he could probably have been gotten for half that.
It's like
because
that's the guy you're going to give a big contract to? I never understood it.
I don't remember if I published this or not, or if I just sent it to you at one point. I looked at the numbers for all the free agent corners at one point. I don't remember if that was something I published or not, frankly.
No, I don't think so.
Because I was looking at just going over PFT, not PFT, who is it? Pro Football Reference. And they break down, they have some pretty interesting, more extensive breakdowns of numbers for corners.
Oh, yeah.
Fuller had the highest quarterback rating allowed of every free agent corner available.
You know,
it was like 129.
Yeah, that's a bit deceiving, I think, because of the sample size. But it also, I think it does tell you something. I don't think that's a completely useless stat.
It's not. I mean, because basically it's, are they allowing catches, which would be yes. Are they allowing for catches for big yards, which would be yes.
Well,
that's kind of...
And, newsflash, the Super Bowl champs let them go.
Yeah.
I just think that ought to tell you something. So I just hope that we end up not getting, one, we don't get disappointed by Kendall Fuller, and then two, that the coaching staff does not try to force a square peg into a round hole by making him follow around the AJ Greens and, God help us, Amari Coopers.
Because he's not the athletic freak who does that. He's a strong guy. He can play physical, but I don't see him, being one-on-one down the field 50 yards with Deshaun Jackson.
Well, and
hopefully that's not what he's asked to do.
And kind of the problem, I guess we don't really mean to be too down on Kendall Fuller. We got to be honest.
Right.
Part of the problem is giving a contract like that is that you have to play him, but you're holding back guys like Jimmy Morlan and Greg Stroman. Neither of which, Morlan in particular is probably a slot corner. He's just too small. I mean, he's 5'10", 180 pounds. Soaking wet. I don't think he's anybody's outside corner, but he's got a lot of natural ability. He's a young guy. He's going to get better. Landon Collins was singing his praises this week.
Sure.
Well,
you got to remember, in college he was a turnover machine.
Yeah. Well, that's what Landon was saying. Landon made some. I'll try to find him here in a second. Landon did a press conference this week. We did not attend, but I did get the transcript from the Redskins about it, and he was talking about how Landon saw that Jamie could see when to jump the route, when to get the interception, just because he was a rookie and a little bit unsure. He sort of wasn't, Whereas when he grows and gets better, that'll happen. And so I think what Landon was saying is that we're going to see Jamie Morlan get better and start to become more the turnover machine that he was in college. Mm-hmm. The problem is, if you've got a dude making $40 million, he's going to be playing.
Right.
And Jamie is going to have a hard time getting on the field too much just by the nature of salary cap. So that's, I guess, my fear is with Fuller is that he's going to hold somebody back and then he's not going to be able to live up to all that money. That's my fear.
And so let's talk about Morland a little more because I think last year he was kind of – we always like to make the joke of who's the Lake Street Sea Strunk of the preseason.
Right.
Or, something – the Antonio Mix. Who's that, late draft pick?
It was Anthony Mix.
Oh, Anthony Mix.
Yeah.
Sorry. But I think he's in jail. One of those guys wound up in jail.
I think it's him. No, it was a murder or something.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, Morland was that guy last year, I think it's fair to say, because he was a JMU guy who had 18 interceptions in college. Everyone was very high on him, fans, I mean. And then it didn't kind of really work out in the regular season because he didn't get on the field enough. I think, he had some growing pains because he's a late-round corner. But it's interesting. You say you think he's a slot guy. I think he is an outside guy. I don't know that he can be there for run support because of the size. I think that, it might be a little more forgiving for him to be kind of like playing more outside cover 3 zone situations than inside in the box.
Well, I mean, slot guys play zone too.
Sure.
We'll see. I mean, who knows? I don't think he's big enough to be a press man corner on outside receivers. He's tiny. He's like my size. He's like 5'9", 180 pounds. So I just don't think you put him out there and expect him to cover like a big X receiver who's like 6'2", 6'3". Unless you're Darrell Green, that's not going to go well. And
sure.
Jimmy and Darrell Green, that's no insult.
Jimmy's got good hands and can jump routes, but he's not. He's not the speed demon that Darrell Green. No, I mean
he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, I'm not trying to. That's not even fair to compare him. I'm just saying Darrell was a tiny guy who could cover number one receivers like that because he's Darrell Green.
Right. And
most can't.
You're
do
talking
that.
your traditional bigger number one too. But I mean, you got to remember there are some smaller receivers out there that maybe you could match him up with. But I mean, I look at Morlan and I understand fans see some potential there. I think you have to hope that his sophomore season he breaks out a little. And if Fuller's going to be, and I think you and I kind of both agree, you got to play him in the slot more. That means you got to focus on who's outside more than anything else. So that's another reason why I think you got to at least give him a shot on the outside, on the edge.
And who else is there? That's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Fabian Moreau is your number one corner if we have one, just by default. Because
I think he's your number one. He plays a more traditional edge corner role. Yeah.
But it's not because he's earned it.
No.
It's because I'll tell you what, this group has a real potential to be awful.
It does. And let's talk about Moreau a little. Because he's almost the opposite of Kendall Fuller in that Fuller was really good on the inside, and then when you saw them try to move him to the outside more, that's where he struggled. Fuller has been terrible in the slot for the last couple of years. I mean, I think he just doesn't have the instincts for it, like from what we've seen. And then, mid last season, when they finally started sitting Josh Norman or whatever,
right?
We put Fuller on the outside, and he played okay. Like, not great,
Fuller?
but at least, he was much better
Moreau,
looking.
Right?
Or
Fuller was on the team last year.
Sorry, I'm talking about Moreau.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got mixed up there. When we put Moreau on the outside, much better than on the inside.
I think everybody who'd watched this film knew that, though.
Yeah,
I watched this film in college and realized that he never played inside ever. He was UCLA's number one corner.
I remember us talking about it extensively.
Exactly, we did.
And then the Redskins still put him in the slot, and it's like, what are you doing?
Well, it's because where else are you going to put him? I mean, at the time, they had a dude making a ton of money, and they had Quintin Dunbar, who legitimately earned the other role. So, sure, you brought Moreau in, but you got to play him somewhere. He was a second-round draft pick. He's got to go somewhere, and he didn't beat out Quintin Dunbar.
No.
No.
And I think, Dunbar was a different type of player, but again, let's not get into that.
Now he's going to be a different type of player entirely.
Yeah, he is.
By the way, speaking of crime, speaking of criminal people, so Anthony Mix, to jump in the Wayback Machine, indicted by a grand jury in 2009 in Alabama for having consensual sex with an underage minor.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
They found him in a car with a 15-year-old girl or something. And
it was 15. No, it was. It was. This is from pewterreport.com, by the way, which is a Bucks site. It says Mix allegedly had a relationship with a 15-year-old girl, and a grand jury found suitable evidence to indict him on those charges. So
that's right. Yeah. I remember that now.
And
that makes me feel old that it was 2009.
I think he got convicted on that charge because what I'm reading is just about the indictment, but I think he was convicted.
Yeah, I think so too. But anyway, that is a bit of a way back. Let's get back to any other thoughts on Moreau. I mean, I think you got to put him on. I think he's by default going to be a starter this year, just because I don't think anyone else can really be the starting outside corner.
Colvin comes on,
Yeah, I don't really see that happening.
No, but here's the thing: Moreau is in a prove-it year.
Sure.
Because he's on the last year of his rookie deal. So he does have a shot to really play well and really earn a role going forward. And if that happens, they'll give him a contract. It's actually a big year for him. So I would look for Moreau to go all out to prove himself this year. So it's possible that he gets it done. It's possible because he's going to want to make every effort to do so he can avoid, or at least he can, boost his stock even if the Redskins let him walk.
Yeah. I think that's probably a good call. We all know how there are a lot of guys in the NFL, and it's absurd how many guys in the NFL show up in those contract years and then disappear again.
Yeah.
It doesn't speak well to that person in my mind, because I feel like if you show up like that for 4 years straight, you're going to do better than...
Albert Hainsworth set himself up for life doing that.
Yeah, I know. I'm not arguing about the economics. I'm talking about the playing
for that matter, I mean, you could say Josh Norman kind of did that.
I would absolutely say that.
I'm higher on Josh Norman than you are, though.
I think I borderline hate the guy.
I don't hate the guy. My goodness.
So
I reserve that
hard
for our people in our comment section, not for football players.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to where do you want to go now? I think we got the last three guys organically. Now we got to kind of pick somebody.
Okay.
You want to do Darby?
Yeah, let's do Darby.
Okay.
Darby is on a 1-year, $3 million contract, and his cap hit's only $2.8 million because of some incentives and whatnot. Darby's a guy who has some speed, has some athletic ability, has some talent. It's been mainly injuries holding him back. Now,
it's been
is Darby a guy who is just injury prone and can't stay healthy? Has he had bad luck? It's been a number of years now, for him. So I mean, he's probably injury prone. I mean, he's a 2015
first rounder, wasn't he?
He was a second rounder in 2015, drafted by the Bills. Played 29 games in the first 2 years of his career, so that's good. But ever since then, 2017, 18, 19, he's been hurt every year. 8 games, 9 games, 11 games. It's like a Jordan Reed thing. He misses half the year every year. If he can ever get it together, he's not a bad player. I'm not saying he's your quote number one corner, although 2% of you think that. I'm saying that it's unreasonable to expect a guy like this to all of a sudden be able to get healthy.
Right.
So, we've been burned on that many times.
We have, and thankfully they didn't sign him to any kind of long-term deal. I think there is a place for a guy like this when you're trying to figure out your secondary. And, there's some advantages to saying, all right, we have Jimmy Morlan, we want to see him prove something, or Stroman or Johnson, some of these other guys who we want to see maybe show up. But here's somebody who's a veteran, who is a decent player, and if you put him out there and he's injured after 8 games, all right, that's when you see if these other guys can do something, and you just start going down the list, next man up style. But Darby, like you said, he's probably not a number one guy, but he's a good number 2 type corner.
He's a starter. He's a legitimate starter.
Yeah. He does have some gaps in his game. I don't think he's great in run support. From what I've read, Eagles fans who are critical of him, he plays a lot of soft zone. Or you remember that thing we used to see the Redskins do where they'd line up 15 yards off their receivers all the time? He does that a lot. And that drove fans nuts, apparently, there. Just like it drove us here nuts about the Redskins defenders. And some of that is scheme, I know, but, that was a criticism that I saw.
Well, it's all scheme, but, they needed a guy who can actually be a legitimate starter.
Right.
That's what they needed, because they've got a bunch of young, unproven guys. Who are you going to start? Is it going to be Greg Stroman, Jimmy Morlan, Danny Johnson, who's been hurt a lot? Aaron Colvin wasn't even on the roster until last week. So they needed a guy like this. They obviously didn't want or didn't try to sign some of these big names, the Byron Jones, of the world. Who else? James Bradbury signed a huge contract. I mean, we all kind of thought the Redskins would do that. Or
right.
No, I shouldn't say that. A lot of people me included, thought the Redskins would try to go after a big-name corner, but they just didn't want to do that.
I didn't think so. And like I kind of said before, I don't think Ron Rivera likes signing big-name corners. I think he values linebackers, defensive line, safeties more than corners.
I think so. I think that's fair. And I don't know if I would say he doesn't like to. I just think he places more value on the front seven.
I think you have... Well, football, you've said this a million times. Football is a lot of economics. And if you're building a team, you got to build a team the way you want it to run. So I think that's kind of Rivera's... That's what he did in Carolina, at least, So,
well, there's a history to that, and of course, it has to be said that he wasn't in charge in Carolina like he was in D.C. So, I mean, it might be different. Maybe he does have a different philosophy, but it's kind of followed suit this year. Sure. They didn't even. There was no indication they pursued Byron Jones. There was no indication they pursued James Bradbury, the two guys who got the really big contracts. So it seemed, they didn't even spend a big high draft pick on a corner.
Right, and they didn't go. Even the mid-tier guys, the guys I liked, like Ryan from Tennessee, or who's the? There were like a couple good Viking corners that became free agents. Like I would have gone after a couple of those guys. And, he didn't even go after them. They wouldn't have been huge contracts, but they would have been good veterans.
I mean, and they've had the cap space. They're
not, they still do. That's the
not a
amazing
team
thing.
hurting for cap space. So,
right.
I mean, who are we to question? If he thinks Ronald Darby can play, who are we to question it? I'm just afraid that we're going to, when it comes about like week 8, it's going to be Ronald Darby hurt his knee, hurt his ankle, has a back problem, God knows what. And then we're going to end up starting somebody like Maurice Smith for the rest of the year,
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to Smith, but I just use him as an example. That's my fear with Ronald Darby. That's the obvious fear. So you have to kind of hope and pray. And Darby himself wants to prove himself because he's on what you would call a prove-it deal.
Right.
He's on a 3-man.
And he knows he's got this MO. Yeah. He's got to.
Yeah, of course he knows. Maybe he's going to be a guy who, balls out and plays well.
Right.
He has the thing about Darby is he has the natural ability and he has the athleticism to do it.
Sure.
And he's not tiny. He's he's another guy who's about 5'11". He's not Jimmy Morlan tiny. So he could play on the outside, I think.
Well, so that's the interesting thing to me about when I was looking at the roster this morning to kind of get the list, because I always double check the roster, at least make sure I have all the names written down.
Right.
But all these guys we've gone from, I feel like, in the previous regime, they liked the 6'1" to 6'3" physical corners. And now we've really quickly gone to everyone's 6 foot or less. They're all kind of smaller, which you'd assume means they're going to be a little bit more of a quick corner group rather than a big physical corner group. But, I'm a little worried that we don't have a big man corner to match up against your big receivers.
You're not the only one.
Yeah.
You're not the only one. I have that fear too, and the pendulum kind of turns every few years. Teams tend to go from a bunch of small, fast guys to a bunch of bigger, slower guys in response to what other teams in their division do.
Right.
I don't know. So that's Darby.
Yeah.
What can you say? Danny Johnson is a guy who's had some talent.
Sure.
Who's shown some ability. He's been hurt a bunch too.
But more brought in to also play special teams initially than be a true corner.
Yeah.
I think he was initially brought on to be a kick returner.
Yeah, he's tiny. He's 5'9", but he's an undrafted free agent who's earned his spot.
Right.
But all the same, I don't think you can reasonably expect a guy who's 5'9", 180 pounds to ever be a starting outside corner. So what's his future? No. His future's probably as either a backup. Or a slot
dime back
guy.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is fine. You need a dime back. Everyone needs one or two guys who can do that.
Yeah, nothing against him. I think he's a good player. I like him. He needs to stay healthy. Another guy who needs to stay healthy.
Right. Then we got Strowman. I think similar story to Danny Johnson, where you really can't expect this guy to step up and become a starter.
I mean, he's a 7th-round draft pick. He's another guy who got a lot of attention because he's from Virginia Tech. A lot of people in the Redskins universe knew who he was, fan base. So he got a lot of attention. He was the do-everything guy at Virginia Tech. Kick returner.
Right.
Got a bunch of interceptions, I believe. Was their number one corner, all of that. But in the NFL, I remember watching film of him getting burned by Kelvin Harmon. You know?
He's not... I would actually say he's been an outright disappointment. Was he the one that it was like a running gag when he was back for punt returns and it was a fair catch every time?
Yeah, I believe that was him. I can't get too disappointed over a 7th-round draft pick.
No.
He's a 7th-round draft pick. So any value you add is kind of a bonus. I know what you mean in that he hasn't developed and become more, but, if there's anything we learned from my 4-part series based on one minor question in our comment section analysis of the odds involved in draft picks. If we go back 2 months, it's that any 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder that does anything but automatically get cut. 7th rounder is making it.
Frankly, if you're picked in 5, 6, 7 undrafted free agent, if you're here for your full rookie contract, I think that's a win.
It's a freaking miracle. Yeah, it's a miracle.
Because that means you were depth for 4 years.
You're basically a unicorn.
Right.
So, all this to say, I'm fine with Greg Stroman being around. I think he does have some natural ability and whatnot, but the idea of expecting him to take some sort of step forward, particularly being tiny, 5'11", 180 pounds, he's a bit small too. All these guys are a bit small. I just don't think that that's realistic. So I think he's probably realistically a depth guy again. Right. And they've gotten a bunch of kick returners now. I don't think they even need Greg Stroman.
And most of them are offensive guys, which I think tend to be more popular for kick returns and punt returns.
Maybe so, yeah.
I don't know why. I just always feel like receivers and running backs do better at it. All right, then we got we kind of talked about Maurice Smith a little, but not much. But I don't think there's a lot to say about the guy.
No,
same
Maurice
with
Smith.
Jeremy Reeves.
Yeah, undrafted free agent in 2017 out of Georgia, 6 foot, 194 pounds. Another guy who, he spent some time on the practice squad.
Sure. Probably will be back there.
If there's anything you can say about this group is that all of them have a chance to earn a spot.
Yeah.
The only guy who's guaranteed to be on the field is Kendall Fuller and Fabian Moreau. Probably.
Right. Everyone else is kind of competing.
Yeah, exactly right. So he has a shot.
Sure.
For Mr. and
Jeremy
Mrs. Smith
Reeves,
out
same
there,
thing.
And I've got Reeves listed.
Sorry, Reeves.
Yeah, I've got Reeves listed as a safety because they have to put him somewhere, and so I threw him in the safety group. But he's one of these guys that can kind of go back and forth and whatnot.
Well, when you look at the Redskins roster on their website, and I think every team has this, you have guys listed at safety, corner, and then defensive back, which means they're really not set for anything.
Right. And, of course, me, because I've got this massive salary cap chart, he's got to go somewhere. So I put him as a safety. But he could do, he's a DB, truthfully. Yeah.
It's that weird DB position, which because I'm OCD in weird ways like you, I hate that there are guys listed as DB or just interior linemen or whatever.
Alex, are you saying I'm obsessive-compulsive about some things?
Oh, yeah. Steve, we have to have a sit-down conversation at some point.
I'm not obsessive-compulsive about anything.
Right. Last guy we didn't mention, Aaron Colvin, who he was formerly a Jacksonville Jaguar. And Jaguar, yes. He was a Jacksonville Jaguar. And then he was a Texan for a cup of coffee. Got cut mid-season last season for playing badly. And then he came here. So I don't have a lot of hopes for Aaron Colvin. Maybe he rebounds and gets some of his form back from when he was in Jacksonville. But I don't see it.
He's on $1 million contract.
Yeah.
He does have some guaranteed money, but all vets do. This is not a guy that if he doesn't perform, they couldn't cut. I think the reason he's here is that Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio look at this corner group and then become horrified.
That might be it.
Oh my God, these are our corners. We've got to get someone in here who is at least a veteran who can at least play some football a little bit. This is the worst. That's a bad way to say it. I think this group has the least expectations of any group on the team.
How about there are a lot of question marks. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, they have a potential to be awful, okay? This group could really be terrible. And I realize everybody out there is all gaga over Chase Young and everything, but somebody's got to cover guys, okay?
Right.
The pass rush cannot solve every problem. Yes, it's going to get better, all of that, and the front seven can, by hitting the quarterback, you help that tremendously. Nobody denies that. But at the same time, you can't just have a bunch of slugs out there in your corner group.
Right.
You have to actually be able to cover some people, and this group is weak. You couldn't fix it all in one offseason. This is a group that's going to see some attention.
Now, that all said, I agree with you completely. This is probably going to be where we'll have problems. There are, like I said at the beginning, I think Fuller and Moreau especially, you can find roles for them where they can at least play decent. As long as you keep them, Fuller stay on the outside, or Fuller stay in the slot, Moreau stays on the outside, that helps. But there's a third position that we need that I don't know who gets it right now. It's probably Darby by default, as that other outside corner. But
it's definitely Darby by default. He's making $2.8 million.
Yeah, but he'll be hurt at week 8, like you said, and then we got to figure something out.
Just objectively, though,
yeah.
I think if you're going to look at the corner groups for every NFL team, this one's going to be way down near the bottom.
Yeah, it's going to be in the 30s.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't care what PFF ranks them or whatever, because I think all that's nonsense. But just if you objectively look at these groups, compare them to other corner groups, that's not to say they can't outperform and all of that, and hopefully they do. But objectively speaking, this is one of the worst corner groups in the entire NFL.
Just going by my gut, which is hardly objective, that's what I feel.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move on to another corner topic, because it kind of came up on Redskin Twitterverse. The Jalen Ramsey tweets a photo of him as a Redskin thing, which I guess sent everyone for the hills, to have an orgy or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it was like, oh, well, don't worry, Jalen Ramsey's going to be Redskin next year automatically.
Right.
So first, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll let you go first, actually, because you had strong opinions on this.
Well, Jalen Ramsey, first of all, is, I think, mostly legit. He didn't have a good 2019 particularly, and he was traded, and he became a nuisance. He's one of these, big ego guys.
Yeah.
That having been said, he's a 3-time Pro Bowler. He's a first-team All-Pro. He's not perfect. I've watched film of him.
He's very good.
He's very good, but there are times when he gets a bit lackadaisical.
Sure.
He can get beat. This is not the second coming of Darrell Green or Deion Sanders. Even though Ramsey has enough ego that he would tell you that that's what he is, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid that my fear about Jalen Ramsey is that he's got size, by the way, he's 6'1", a little bit bigger. My fear about Ramsey is that he's going to be one of these ones, once he gets his big contract, is not going to be able to live up to this big contract and all the hype that comes with him. That's my fear about Jalen Ramsey. Now, the other thing is, he's going to be the highest paid corner in football, okay?
Sure.
And so what you're looking at here, the really good comp is Byron Jones. He used to be with Dallas, now he's with Miami. Byron Jones was a 3-time Pro Bowler, 1-time, All-Pro, $82.5 million contract, $46 million guaranteed at signing.
Ooh.
Average salary $16.5 million. Average annual value $16.5 million. I mean, they could give that kind of contract. But that having been said, you've already got Landon Collins on a giant contract. So you're going to have a corner, so if you figure that Ramsey's going to want to beat the Byron Jones contract.
Right.
Because it's 2 years later, or a year later rather, and he's just going to want to be the number one. So you got to beat that. So if you figure 5 years, $85 million, give him $17 million annual value. Well, then you've got Landon Collins making $14 million. And
you have Ramsey making
he's making $17 million next year. You're going to have $35 million tied up in two guys.
And then Kendall Fuller making another 10
there you go.
Something.
Yeah, $13 million.
13, sorry.
Yeah, and so you're going to have $48 million tied up.
And you'll still have a big hole at one cornerback position.
Exactly. So it's not that I don't want someone, objectively speaking, with, obviously we want a big-time number one corner. But that's a ton of money to put into the secondary. Maybe they will. The Redskins have a ton of cap space next year.
Well, depending on what the cap becomes, because that's a whole other topic.
No, they're going to have a ton of cap space no matter what. The salary cap could be lower because of this coronavirus nonsense and all that. That's what Alex is saying. But right now they have about $129 million obligated towards next year. So even if the cap stayed the same, or went down a little bit,
then we have $70 million.
They still have tons and tons. They could do this. They could sign him, but that's an awful lot of money to put into one secondary.
It really is
for a guy who sometimes talks more than he performs.
And I'm over having that number one paid corner because I can't remember in the last 10 years when the number one paid guy actually performed up to his expectations. I feel like
Champ Bailey probably.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Because the way that the game is structured now, corners get burned more because they can't play physical. There's a lot of stuff they can't do versus what they used to be able to do in like Darrell Green or even Champ Bailey's day. Like, you know how they say you don't have lockdown corners anymore. To me, paying $80 million for any corner is just not going to be worth it. I'd rather pay $40 million to two guys than $80 million to one.
I mean, Jalen could be that guy. He could.
Sure.
He's got all the objectives. He's got the speed. He's got the size. But his film is not perfect. It's not, and he's got the type of attitude that really makes me afraid about what's going to happen, that he's going to be talking too much and talking more than he's going to be able to perform.
If you're making big money, you need to be a leader,
He's a talker, not a leader. Yeah. I don't think I definitely don't think. Landon Collins is a pretty good leader. Mm-hmm. He doesn't yap like that. I'm a bit biased because I have a natural dislike of talkers.
Sure.
I don't like talkers, and so I'm trying to be objective about it. Putting the talking part of it aside, I'm not sure. There have been times when his film lives up to that, but there have been also times when it doesn't. So I'm afraid that he's going to be one of these guys that relaxes once he gets his guaranteed money. That's
I think. There are people who say trash talking can be part of your game. I've never if someone trash talks me, it doesn't get to me. If somebody, to me, I just don't understand.
There have been quiet guys that are in the Hall of Fame.
I think there are plenty of them, frankly. So I don't see anything happening with the Jalen Ramsays.
So do you want? Yeah, it's like, do you want to pay this guy $85 million over 5 years?
No, I mean, I said, I'd rather pay two guys $40 million, especially
somebody's
at corner, because in the end, in my mind, and this is where my bias against corner is. You only cover one guy on half the field, best case. I'd rather pay two guys to do that good than one guy to do it great, and then you just get burned on the other side.
And then, by the way, the other comp is Darius Slay. And Slay doesn't have all of the Pro Bowls and the All Pro. But Slay is the other guy who got a big contract. He got a 3-year contract, $50 million, which also comes out to about $16.5 million, slightly under $17 million. So the average annual value. So the sweet spot is about $17 million average annual value. That is what Jalen Ramsey is going to ask for. And so I ask you guys out there, because Alex and I have given our opinion, do you really want $17 million from Landon Collins, $17 million from Jalen Ramsey, $13 million from Kendall Fuller in 2021? If you pay all that money, that better be one of the best secondaries in football. And I don't know.
I would rather give that money to a linebacker or something. That's just how I think the team should be built.
Personally, I would rather spend a high draft pick on a corner. Yeah,
same here. Spend that, and I think that should be in the cards. All right, there's a couple other stories wanted to touch on. Chris Thompson finally got signed by the Jaguars. Jaguars. So he's reunited with Jay Gruden. Good for Chris Thompson because he's, I think he was underappreciated as a weapon for the Redskins, other than maybe one season where he really started blowing up.
He got hurt. He was never the same after he got hurt.
Yeah, I know. But good guy, was good in the locker room. And I'm happy.
Really great guy. And he's got a story about his brother was in prison and just got out in the past couple years and saw him play for the first time. He's got a great story. He's a genuinely decent guy.
When he was healthy.
I don't think have we ever interviewed him on the show? I don't know if we have.
I tried to at one point. I don't remember if I actually did. I went up to him and I was like, "Hey, can we talk?" And then
it didn't
I think
work.
he got distracted signing stuff for fans, and I don't know if we ever talked.
But he's a genuinely decent guy. I'm happy for him. I hope it works out. I mean, the fact of the matter is that running backs have.
That's how much of a nice guy he is. I wanted to interview him, but he was too busy hanging out with fans to do it.
Running backs have a short shelf life, as we all know.
Yeah. Glad he's even with the team still.
And it's because of Jay.
Yeah.
Obviously. Jay Gruden likes him.
I wish him all. He's like a son to Jay.
I wish Chris all the best for sure.
Yeah. So the other thing you had an update on the Sean Taylor movie.
Oh, yeah.
We interviewed the producer. What was
a while ago. And Neerdai Trin was her name.
Neerdai Trin, yeah.
Yeah.
We're Facebook friends. I just can never remember how to pronounce her first name.
Yeah, so anyway, the movie is still going forward. They are rewriting the script right now. They did that funding campaign through the fans frankly didn't raise what she hoped, but that's okay because they're moving forward anyway. And so they're in it's still on. It's still a full go. They're in the script rewriting stage right now, which needs to be done before they can really kind of move forward into production and really get the big money lined up and everything. Because the fan campaign was never the real money. All that was kind of the pre-money to kind of get things going. And get the script rewritten, and so that's being done. So it's there's still not a release date or anything, but it's still the project is still alive, and we will probably have her. But I'll get her back on once Once
I know. I know.
Closer.
I gave a pretty. I don't remember exact because they had like price points, and I gave whatever it was so that I could be in the movie. That was the price point I hit.
Yeah.
I was like, you want? It might have been $100. It was like for $100 you get to have a cameo. Okay.
Yeah, that's
there you
cool.
Go.
Yeah, exactly. So
I want to be in that.
It's just a quick update. For all those who were excited about it.
Right.
I know I am.
Yeah, I am too. And shame on people who didn't donate. Frankly, because you all say you love Sean Taylor, then push comes to shove, you don't open up a checkbook.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't, you can't. But I mean, if those of you who could, it was a good cause.
Most of you could, and you're just being cheapskates.
All right. 38 million people out of work now, Alex. Maybe it was good they didn't.
Okay, fine. But this was 6 months ago.
That's true. That's true.
All right. There were two other stories. We didn't talk about the Cody Latimer thing because it happened, or it didn't really come out till after we recorded last week. Let's just say I didn't think anyone would outdo the Quintin Dunbar robbery story for crazy offseason stuff. This outdoes it. Because the story is Cody Latimer, who's a Redskins receiver right now, who we just signed this offseason, had a gun at a poker game, started threatening people, was arrested, and then he says it's because the police told him that somebody at that poker game had molested his kid, and here we go.
Yeah, now, and I know a lot of you out there just automatically go, well, he's justified and whatnot. Okay, just understand that this is his side of the story.
Sure.
That doesn't mean any of it is true, okay? Just like an allegation is a mere allegation until proven, it also means that just because his attorney gets up and says this doesn't mean it's accurate, right, not a total lie. We really don't know. Now, I have tried. I have made a request. I have filed a Freedom of Information request with the Douglas County, Colorado Sheriff's Department. This is Castle Rock, Colorado, for those of you who know Colorado. I have filed a Freedom of Information request to try to get the entire file. They responded and said, we're looking into it. This person has your request. They will probably...
Which is what you do with FOIA requests.
Yeah,
anyone who works in government knows how it works.
And that's FOIA is a federal term, but I mean, that's what we did. So I am trying... so give us time. We will if we get anything from them, we will let you know. But it's a crazy story. I would say, if I can make any recommendation to anybody out there, is that don't prejudge any of this. Right. Because just like I know most people sort of tend to take the side of players on this, and his attorney is clearly trying to generate sympathy with the public by telling that story. But I don't believe that any more than I believe a charge, right up front. You got to let the process play out and see what happens. He may be completely guilty. And just by the way, I mean, if his son has been molested, obviously great sympathy. Only a monster would do something like that. But there's also a way to handle it and a way not to handle it. And the way not to handle it is to threaten to kill somebody.
Right. You don't go vigilante.
Yeah, I mean, that's not – I understand the hurt and the pain in that if it happened, but the way to do that is to get the person arrested,
and
not
I
to
think,
get yourself arrested.
Well,
and have your son then lose a father,
Yeah. Well, let's also say I think we all understand the mentality of, why wouldn't you? But then there's the reality of it too, which is a lot more complicated.
And the reality is that, it's not worth going to jail and having your son lose his father for a term of a prison sentence.
You can still be, charged with murder even if you're doing it because somebody hurt your kid.
It's still murder.
That's the thing.
I mean, there's not an excuse under the law to kill somebody because they harmed someone else. You know, self-defense is a defense. You know, something horrible and tragic happened to your son is not a defense. And so that's not the way to handle it. But we don't, again, all of this may be totally wrong. All that may be a complete lie. We don't know. So we'll just have to see what happens with Cody Latimer. It certainly seems unlikely that he's going to be playing for the Redskins in week 1.
No. But again, it almost was like, because these stories came out so close together, it's like Dunbar and that crazy story happened. Latimer's like, oh, yeah? Let me do this.
Yeah. So we'll see. Hopefully the sheriff. Now, I've tried to do this before with other sheriff's departments. And
we had success once or twice when you did this.
Well, you know, a lot of times it's because I dug out the pleadings from the court. Okay.
Right.
I did try to get through to Loudoun County about the Monte Nicholson event, and they responded and said, we're not releasing it.
Right.
I just never said it on the show.
Off,
I never said it on the show because there was nothing to report. But so sometimes these sheriff's office will release it. Sometimes they won't. We'll see. Yeah. So just stay tuned.
Yeah. So
I also tried to dig up the indictment, and it would have been more effort than it wasn't online in an easy way where I could get him as an attorney.
Effort than it's worth. But you've done this before because. Because of your background, you kind of know the procedures, which is really the key to doing any of this.
Yes.
Just knowing how to handle it procedurally.
Right.
All right, so the last thing I wanted to briefly mention, not really a great topic, but just a funny little thing. I'm going to go to
sleep for a minute, so go ahead.
Steve can wander off and do something else because he's going to hate this. There was the Madden Bowl apparently last week, and the winner of the Madden Bowl won by using Tress Way as his quarterback. And now... So Steve's not going to care, but here's why this guy plays with Tress Way as his quarterback. Apparently, there's like a financial cap type thing when they play these games. And so this guy philosophically does a 100% run game scheme. So he doesn't spend money on a quarterback. He doesn't spend money on wide receivers. Just decided to use Tress Way as a quarterback because he's left-handed and it screws with the mechanics of the games when you have a lefty quarterback versus a right-hand quarterback. And so that helps his run game. So, like, that's why this actually happened. It's just a weird story that he threw Tress Way in there, a punter, as his quarterback. But I mean, the Moneyball thing to me is funny because we talk about that with pro sports all the time. That if you have a salary cap,
Tress has got a big contract though.
No, but it's because he's a punter. It's not. They don't use his contract number.
He's got a $2.6 million cap hit.
It's not using those numbers. It's like funny money. You pay $100 for Tom Brady.
Oh, so it's even more dumb.
$10 for Tress Way.
You know, God, if you like Madden, God bless you. Have at it. That's fine.
Steve hates sports games, so
it's not that I would. It's not. I've sat down with the boys and played them. With them. When they were younger, and let them. They smoked me on it for the most part.
Right.
It's not that I hate them. It's that I think people make way too big a deal out of it. It doesn't mean anything. It has
it's a way to waste your time.
And that's fine. God bless you. Have at it. But there's a group of people out there that somehow think it relates to actual football, and that's just freaking stupid. I'm sorry.
No.
At this site, as long as I'm a part of this site, we will never be doing simulated games. If the season doesn't happen for this health reasons, one thing we will come up with other content. One thing we will not be doing is write-ups of simulated games that didn't actually happen.
I will never do a write-up. I enjoy playing football video games. I think that the NCAA football games that haven't been made for 6 years now, some of the best video games ever made.
Yeah.
Because, it doesn't in fairness, like you said, it's not real football. In the end,
but it's a computer. Yeah,
it is. But you can get some really interesting ideas of like play design and stuff like that come out of it. And you could never run the triple option in the NFL, but you can figure out ways to do it in these video games, which can be fun.
It's like my Dodgers site that I read all the time is now doing write-ups of simulated games.
Oh, that's stupid. I don't like that.
I wrote into him and I said, "This is dumb." I'd rather have you come do some write-ups of some old classic game. That I would read. Like pick an important game from 1978, or something, and write up about that. That would be interesting to me. And they wrote back and said, blah, blah, blah. It's a free site and piss off. And to which I responded in kind, as I want to do.
Steve, just so you know, this is how you ended up doing a Redskins website. So that means in 6 months, are we going to start seeing stevesdodgersite.com?
Maybe. I don't know, man. Maybe. I don't have time to do another site.
No. And you would need somebody to design it for you, and I don't care about the Dodgers, so I'm not doing that.
Well, and I'm a big baseball fan. I don't know if I could write about it in the same way I can football either.
Sure.
You know,
but
my point is, they're wasting their time. DodgersDigest.com. You guys are wasting your time writing up every day games that you're doing on some kind of video game.
Sure.
How many people are possibly reading that? I just wonder.
They probably have metrics. I'm sure they do.
I guess, but it's like there's got to be something better. So if coronavirus cancels the season, we're going to come up with something far more interesting and useful than a simulated game. Trust me.
What would horrify you to write more? A simulated video game thing, or me posting something about the Redskins uniform history again?
Oh, at least that's legit. I'd go for the uniform history every time. At least that's something in reality that happened. You know,
because I think those are probably your two least favorite things that could possibly come to your...
the food thing, too.
The food.
And I realized, like, I asked you to write something, and so that's what you came up with, and, but it's like, man, food...
People who, the readers who you hate, they loved it, so there was that.
They're idiots.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do we have anything else you want to talk about?
I don't know if they think I'm not serious. I really think you're idiots. I truly think you're idiots. It's not a joke, and it's not being facetious. I truly think you're idiots. But please comment anyway, because we can use you for clicks.
Yeah. Greg and Walter and all you guys. And the guys whose names I know but don't really want to say because you use handles for a reason. I won't mention.
Okay.
But... anyway, I think that kind of does it for this week's episode. I don't know if we have anything else, and we're over an hour.
Rattle on. Yeah, I could. You could keep talking, but
yeah, we could. But let's not, and let's let people get back to their weird little lives of sitting in their houses, playing video games, because that's what you're all doing. I know it. Just please wear pants. That's all I say. Please wear pants.
Why do they have to wear pants if they're in their house by themselves?
You got to go outside every once in a while to take out the trash.
Are you wearing pants yourself right now?
Yeah, well, I'm wearing shorts. Shorts count?
Yeah, shorts count.
Yes, I'm wearing shorts. I have very comfortable
I guess I'm saying I don't care if they're wearing pants or not because I don't have to look at it.
Well, I had to go out every day this week for work, so.
Well, yeah, if you don't wear pants outside, then you're going to be arrested. And then we need a new webmaster, so please don't do that.
The site's on autopilot. All right, guys, that should take care of us for this week. Tune back in for new content, new written posts, all that fun stuff, and take care out there.